This is the Bible study of Daniel 5,
Yeah,
the writing on the wall.
yeah, the writing on the wall.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, Andrew?
Hang on, Daniel.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I've got Daniel in.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Right, go on.
Daniel 5.
Daniel.
And I go for me.
King,
Yeah, I've got it.
Go
Daniel.
on.
King Belshazzar held a great feast for 1,000 nobles. The wine flowed freely. Belshazzar, heady with wine, and ordered that gold and silver chalice. His father
Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar had stolen from God's temple of Jerusalem, be brought into so that he and his wives and concubine could drink from them. When the gold and silver chalices were brought in, the king and his nobles, his wives and his concubines
Yeah.
drank wine from them. They drank the wine and drunkenly praised their gods, made of gold and silver, bronze and iron, wood and stone. At the very moment, the fingers of a human hand appeared and began writing on a lamp illuminated, whitewashed wall of the palace. When the king saw this disembodied handwriting away, he went white as a ghost and scared out of his wits. His legs went limp and his knees knocked. He yelled out for the enchanters, the fortune tellers, and the diviners to come. He told these Babylonian magi, anyone who can read this writing on the wall, tell me what it means. We will be famous and rich. Purple robe, the great gold chain, and be third in command in the kingdom.
Then came in all the king's wise men, but they could not read the writing, nor make known to the king the interpretation thereof. Then was King Belteshazzar greatly troubled, and his countenance was changed in him, and his lords were atoned. Now the queen, by reason of the words of the king and his lords, came into the banquet house, and the queen spake, and said, O king, live forever. Let not the thoughts trouble thee, nor let thy countenance be changed. There is a man in thy kingdom, in whom is the spirit of the holy gods, and in the days of the Father light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of gods, was found in him, whom the king Nebuchadnezzar, my father, the king, I say thy father, made master of magicians, astrologers, charlatans, and soothsayers. I think it's that, anyway.
Charlatans.
For as much as an excellent spirit and knowledge and understanding, interpreting of dreams and shewing of hard sentences and dissolving of doubts were found in the same Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will show the interpretation. Then was Daniel brought in before the king, and the king spake and said unto Daniel, Art thou that Daniel which art of the children of the captivity of Judah, whom the king my father brought out of Judea? I have even heard of thee, that the spirit of the gods is in thee, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom is found in thee. And now the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing, and make known unto me the interpretation thereof, but they could not show the interpretation of the thing.
And I have heard of thee, that thou canst make interpretation and dissolve doubts. Now if thou canst read the writing, and make known to me the interpretation thereof, thou shalt be clothed with scarlet, and have a chain of gold about thy neck, and thou shalt be third ruler in the kingdom. Then Daniel answered and said before the king, Let thy gifts be to thyself, and give thy rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing upon the king, and make known unto him the interpretation. O thou king, the most high God, give Nebuchadnezzar thy father a kingdom and majesty and glory and honour. And for the majesty that he gave him, all peoples, all nations and languages trembled and feared before him, whom he would slew and whom he would keep alive, and whom he would set up and whom he would put down. But when his heart was lifted up and his mind hardened in pride, he was disposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. And he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beasts, and his dwelling was with wild asses, and they fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, until he knew that the Most High God ruled in the kingdom of men, and that he appointed it over whoever he will. And thus his son, and thou his son, O Belshazzar, hast not humbled thine heart, though thou knowest all this, but thou hast lifted thyself up against the Lord of heaven, and they have brought the vessels out of his house before thee, and thou and thy lords, thy wives and thy concubines have drunk wine in them, and thou hast praised the gods of silver, and gold, and of brass, and iron, and wood, and stone, which see not, nor hear, nor know, and the God in whose thy hand thy breath is, and whose ways, and whose all thy ways thou hast not glorified. Go from here.
Then,
You got it.
Right.
then
Even though you knew all this, you acted against the Lord of heaven, and brought in the cups and bowls taken from his temple. You, your noblemen, your wives, and your concubines drank wine out of them, and praised gods made of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone, gods that cannot see or hear, and that do not know anything. But you did not honour the God who determines whether you live or die, and who controls everything you do. That is why God has sent the hand to write these words. This is what was written: number, number, weight, divisions. And this is what it means: number. God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Weight, you have been weighed on the scales and found to be too light. Division, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Immediately Belshazzar ordered his servant to dress Daniel in a robe of royal purple and hang a gold chain of honour around his neck, and he made him the third in power in the kingdom. That same night Belshazzar, the king of Babylonia, was killed, and Darius the Mede, who was then 62 years old, seized the royal power.